So good to see you. Thank you for making it here this evening. My name's Joe. I'm fortunate to be Dean of St Edmundsbury, but I am beyond excited tonight about the Gipping Valley Way of the Cross, relaunch of a medieval pilgrim route, and so grateful to those who have been the guiding spirits for this and who are going to be speaking to us. You don't need much more from me. I hope you have water. I hope if you need to leave here and go downstairs and fan yourselves, lose the water downstairs, or just don't spread yourselves out on the cloister garth if it all becomes rather too warm for you. We are thrilled at the Cathedral because pilgrimage is at the heart of what it means to be a cathedral. Journeys to welcome here, sending out again, hospitality, prayer and faith. And the fact that another pilgrim route is being revived, a historic pilgrim route is being revived, is beyond exciting. We have our own small project which we hope will land in the next few, announcements made in the next couple of weeks, the Abbey of St Edmunds Reborn project, and pilgrimage will be at the heart of that, how we welcome a new generation of visitors, understanding all the benefits that come to us mentally, physically and spiritually when we take those journeys. And here is a prime example, carefully resourced, calling in us all the historic churches, landscape, shrines and pilgrim places on the way from Ipswich with the beautiful shrine of Our Lady of Grace through to here in Bury St Edmunds. What is not to like? So our hope is that over the coming years these pilgrim routes will be loved and well trodden and prayed in and used. So it's just my job to say thank you for being here. I think the hope is that after Andy has spoken, the chair of the working group, and then the onset was a guiding light, Dr. Mike, at the end of this at about 8:30 you will all gather, look at maps at the back, and there are drinks to be had and the chance just to keep the conversation going. But we have luminaries here this evening. Madam Mayor, we are delighted you're here, Archdeacon David. Our Lord Lieutenant sends his huge apologies. He had to take a mercy dash to Lowestoft today. He didn't tell me why, but he said he might not be back in time, but sent his huge apologies. This is close to his heart as our new Lord Lieutenant. So the fact that he wasn't here tonight doesn't mean he won't be walking that route himself at some stage. But it's a delight to have you here. Now you need to really hear from the people who know what we're talking about tonight. Thank you.
Dean Joe, thank you for your words of welcome, and thank you for the support that the Cathedral has given us already in embarking on such a project. I would just like to take you back to the beginning, not the beginning of time, don't worry, but the beginning of the project. It happened literally about 6 months ago, and the original 6 met in the Pilgrim's Kitchen downstairs. There was myself and Mike, there was Sarah Gull, Mark and Peter from Needham Market, accompanied by Reverend Tracy James. And we came together really shocked by the fact that we from Hawley had this idea about reconstructing a medieval pilgrimage route from Ipswich to Bury St Edmunds. Shocked because Tracy and Rob and Peter from Needham Market also had this idea from somewhere to reconstruct a medieval pilgrimage route from Ipswich to Bury St Edmunds via places like Needham Market, Hawley, Woolpit and others. So when we realised this, we began to get quite excited. And from that point, as we have shared the idea and created a working group along the proposed route, if you like, of churches and their representatives, as we've shared it beyond to various people, from the county council, from hotels, from all sorts of walks of life, there's been this energy, this dynamism, this momentum that's gathered. And we are all here tonight because we've all probably picked up something of this energy that's going on about this idea of reconstructing this route. Well, the rest, if you like, is history, which brings me on to our historian for this evening. Our historian is Dr. Mike Walker, who's also from St Mary's, Pawley. Mike is the secretary of the working group, and Mike has done so much to drive the project along in just 6 months to the point it is tonight. He is an author, and he is well versed in, well, as you will see, the history of pilgrimages, and I'm delighted that Mike is going to share this presentation. Once he's done so, there'll be opportunity for question and answers, so if you could wait till the presentation is finished before coming in with your pearl of wisdom or some incredible question, please do so. And yes, and then after that, we will have refreshments and we'll explain what else happens then. So, Dr. Mike Walker, thank you very much for presenting tonight.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm going to say at the outset that Dean Joe very kindly is here squeezing this into his very busy calendar, and he has to leave at about 8:15. So if he walks out while I'm still speaking, it's not because I hope I've made some doctrinal funny part or something like that. But thank you so much for being here, sir. Brilliant. I'm going to talk about 5 things which are key elements of this project, really. And preface what I'm saying by pointing out that our group is still not entirely sure about the name, the Gipping Way of the Cross, because the Gipping is half the route, and then you leave the river behind. And so the idea of the Suffolk Way of the Cross, but the western half of Suffolk might be fed up because they're not, and so it's all very difficult. And the other thing is the little logo at the top right in this partnership with the Cathedral is just a placeholder for a waymarker for the route eventually. So this is to be developed a bit further. So what are the 5 things? Well, the first one is to tell you that this really was a very significant medieval pilgrimage route from Ipswich to Bury St Edmunds. In fact, it's been overlooked in the modern era. So if you look at the British Pilgrimage Trust website, it's not on there. And if you look at any book which is about pilgrim routes in England, it's not on there. I don't understand why it's not there, but it's not there. So this is rediscovering a route which genuinely was impressive and important in the medieval period, and has got lost in modern time. I tried to trace some routes to Bury St Edmunds from the medieval period. So you've got Bury, you've got Ely and St Benet's Abbey in Norfolk, where the original monks came from to found Bury St Edmunds Abbey. And you've also got this route, our route, which, as I say, doesn't appear, it's got lost. The St Edmund Way is interesting because it's not really an original pilgrim route. It's more a route which touches on places that were important in St Edmund's life. So there's a slight difference. There are many, many other routes. So this is a very schematic map because the country was crisscrossed with shrines and routes. There were 16 married shrines in Suffolk alone in the 12th and 13th century. But it's a route that hasn't had appropriate press. Why was it so important? We just need to understand the pulling power of the shrine of St Edmund with his flag and shirt and cup and all the relics in the abbey. This is a later drawing of what Justin of Bracklawns described in the 1190s. And it was sitting here. This is the undercroft in the ruins, but here the high altar, just there, where pilgrims could come. Apparently especially efficacious if you crawled underneath the pillars and kissed it from underneath. So he was an unusual saint, a king as well as a saint. He was considered incorruptible. So a little lady would cut his nails and his hair, once a year at least. His body apparently still growing, even though he was deceased. So a very unusual saint. The abbey was enormous, and we need to think about a place that was on the scale of Santiago de Compostela. And when you talk about pilgrimage, everyone says, oh, the Camino and Santiago. But if you said that in the 12th century, they would talk about this place. The abbey building was 50 feet longer than Norwich Cathedral. Its west front, reconstructed there, was as big as Chartres Cathedral, which if you've seen that, was enormous. Reputedly, it could hold 16,000 pilgrims at one time. If you look at the centre court of Wimbledon, that holds thousands, and it's quite a tiny area. So I believe that. I believe that 16,000 standing could be in there at one time. The whole of Bury St Edmunds was designed by the Normans as a stage set. So there was a bar on top of the tower to attract pilgrims, and you were funneled by the streets towards this magnificent west front, where there were three huge doors, one for pilgrims to go in, one for them to come out, and one for everybody else. And the town actually had to build extra churches, of which the cathedral is one, to accommodate the townspeople. Place of learning, and even had its own mint, and it also had a huge influence in the economy. This is the English influence. I borrowed this from Rebecca Pinner, a historian. The red are manors which are owned, major holdings owned by the abbey. The blue are references to Edmund or dedications to Edmund in churches. This is the 12th century. And the green are food farms feeding this enormous industry in Bury St Edmunds. The Magna Carta was actually committed to on the altar of the abbey in Bury St Edmunds. So democracy was founded here, really. And this is the fallen sword from the Battle of Thorn, just north of Bury. You can just see the letters in Latin. This is shorthand for Sanctus, and it says on both sides, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And this could refer to the 50 knights. It might have belonged to one of the 50 knights that the abbey had the right to hold, which was a huge number of knights in the 12th century. And they could even have been Knights Templars, which was an order set up in order to protect pilgrimage routes. So this was a massive draw, and it drew from all over Europe. The abbots were Italian or French in some cases. They hobnobbed with kings, and people came across Europe to visit this shrine. So we are talking about something on a massive scale, and trying to give this the abbey reborn, you have to go back to this period, pre the Canterbury Shrine, Becket Shrine, and the period when this was a huge draw. Here's all these ways are the major ways of pilgrim routes across Europe, and they show on the map originally I copied it showed going from Calais to Canterbury, and not these arrows I put in. But quite easily it would have been possible to go from Utrecht or from Bruges or from Calais to Ipswich and then to Bury St Edmunds. And we know that people did. We know people did. Ipswich is very interesting. Ipswich was a Hanse port, and the Hanseatic League lasted from the 12th to the 17th century, and it was a confederation across the whole of Europe of trading ports. And Ipswich was one of only three. London was a Hanse port, Ipswich was, and what was called Bishop's Lynn, then called King's Lynn after the Reformation, they were Hanse ports. Safe harbour, safe from piracy, and you could bring your ships in there and trade. In the 1400s, Ipswich had over 90 foreign merchants living on the docks in merchant houses and with their warehouses there. There was a huge trade because Suffolk was one of the wealthiest counties in England. So the cloth trade was a big part of that. Cloth was exported all over Europe. Instead, other things were imported, including dyes for cloths. Suffolk cloth was very highly coloured. So, for example, Stowmarket specialised in reds and russets. So manna, which is the dye needed for that, was taken up the river. So one of the people coming along tonight is about the Ipswich bid for City of Culture in 2029. And one of their things is the river flows both ways. And this river literally flowed both ways because the Hanse ports had this emblem. And this is the seal of Ipswich, the only English city to have this as their medieval city seal. It's a cob, which is a flat-bottomed boat that Hanse merchants use. It's seagoing, but it could go up rivers a fair way. The Kipling could be navigated with one of these a fair distance up it. It's less navigable now. So the fact that Ipswich was a Hanse port gave a number of things to pilgrims. Hanse ships were an assured taxi service. You were not going to be mugged on a Hanse ship. You were going to have, security of getting to where you were trying to get to, protection from piracy and so forth. But also you might be able to do the first part of the pilgrimage on a boat sailing on the river. So that's significant. And here's a map, and it was Peter who's here, a Hanse Carta, a map of the Hanse League. It doesn't copy very well, but there are routes all the way across the sea. These are all Hanse towns, Hanse ports. Lubeck is where it began. That's a replica of a cob which was actually at Kingston a few years ago. On top of that, thinking about the importance of this route, we need to think about major shrines in East Anglia. We know about Walsingham, 1061. There's a lot of detail here you don't need to worry about, but that's when Walsingham, the vision took place. But then we've also got not only Bury St Edmunds, but these shrines. Our Lady of Woolpit, which Shalona, who's here, has written a great deal about and researched very thoroughly. First mentioned around about 1211, and then we've got Our Lady of Grace in Ipswich, and we've got the Chapel of the Holy Cross at Hawley, which is a latecomer, 1260s. Richard Earl of Cornwall, who Dermot McCulloch, who couldn't be here, but I've had an exchange with him, Oxford historian. He described him as a billionaire at the time and an all-round show-off. And what he wanted was to get onto the bandwagon of this route and make Hawley a shrine with a piece of the Holy Cross as well. Pilgrims were not daft, and they would try and get as much spiritual bang for their bucks as they could. So if you could go to not one, not two, not three, but 4 shrines on a relatively short route, you would do it. So this is why this route is particularly significant to us. There's plenty of evidence about pilgrim activity. These are carvings of pilgrims, long thin figures, in the portraits of John the Baptist at Needham Market. This is the Limes, which was originally a pilgrim hostel in Needham Market in the Tudor period up to the Reformation. On the right we've got hostels for pilgrims, the ruins of that. And in the middle we've got a pilgrim badge, one from France and one from Italy, and then King Edmund in the middle. And then badges or ampullae to hold holy water have been found in a number of places. They're all found in Suffolk. So Suffolk saw people passing through and dropping these things. And there's the Bull in Woolpit, where there were many inns. There was a huge horse fair in Woolpit, round about the same date as the feast day of Mary, one of the days, and people would gather from across East Anglia. Plenty of evidence. So this is the route, and in the leaflet you've been given, you've got that route, which you might want to follow, and I'll talk about the second part of this. Just to finish this very brief gallop through history, what you followed at that time was a river to navigate, or the biggest landmarks, which were churches. So if you look at the route we've established by walking it, you will see that it follows the Gipping up to the head of the Gipping. When you go to Dagworth, which is about there, Dagworth in the medieval period was a dock, and it's rumoured that the stone for Hawley Castle was cornerstone, and it was brought all the way by boat up to Dagworth. In fact, it's still known locally as Dagger Docks, and it was in the top 20% of towns by size in that period. Now it's about 7 houses, and you can't navigate a boat up there. So you could follow the river, but also you could follow the landmarks of churches. And look at this ribbon of churches here, along this route, which are like jewels, or a thread of jewels, up to the great jewel of Bury St Edmunds. So that's what pilgrims were following. That's my first part. My second part is to say, we wanted to find out, is this viable today? So we tried to walk the route. And I am extremely grateful to these people here, and to me this far end, and then Johnny and Joe in the middle, and my wife Maria on the far end, and this is us outside Creating St Peter. And what we did was we tried to walk the route in 3 sections. If you're an experienced walker, you will probably be able to do that. They're roughly 15 miles, 9 miles and 16 miles. And you could do it 3 days, end on end, and you need 2 places to stay in the middle. You could walk it, however, in much shorter sections. I know that Tracy at Needham Market is thinking about her congregation and doing very small sections over the year, next year, to celebrate the anniversary. And we're very lucky that there are train stations along the route, so you can get a train and walk back again for some of these shorter sections. But for my purposes, I'm going to show you the 3 sections that we walked, and this is literally a sort of photo essay with a few comments, and you can follow it on the map that you've got in the brochure you've been given if you wish. So this is the first section, Ipswich to Needham Market, 15 miles. You'll see those people you've seen crop up in the photographs and so on, plus shadow of Weimaraner, there's a sort of grey dot here. Each is prefaced by the OS map, showing you the same sort of thing that you've got on the map in front of you, just where these shrines and churches are. A few bits of other information, unique landscape here. There's nothing much contentious about this section of the route. We decided to make the start, St Mary at the Elms. It shouldn't strictly be the docks in Ipswich, but there's a decommissioned church there now. And we walked straight to the river. So you go back towards the railway station in Ipswich and drop down onto the river path and then out along following the river. We didn't want to take a route through the suburbs of Ipswich to the river up here, which is more direct. We wanted to follow what Philbins probably would have done. And this is not contentious all the way following the river path up to Eden Market. So here we are. This is St Mary at the Elms. We called it the Way of the Cross because we wanted to be simple about it and not to emphasise doctrinally Marian shrines or any particular. We wanted to be non-denominational. So we thought let's try and sort of take the core of it as the cross. And there are crosses that crop up everywhere on the way. And there's this magnificent cross, as well as the shrine of Our Lady of Grace at St Mary at the Elms. It also, by the way, has one of the oldest doors in the country going to the church. Not the oldest, but one of the oldest. And there's the shrine. There's a plaque to where the shrine was in the chapel outside the walls, quite close to the church. Then we moved off out of Ipswich. This is called the Navigator sculpture on the trail out, coming out of the town. And it is quite built up, and there are some industrial archaeology relics there as you start. So we're going under the A12, under the bridge here, and out. And eventually we go under the A14, this is on the left, that's us doing that. And we're into open country. On our way to Scotland. I'm very grateful to Andy for telling me that Millennium has two ends. Or I would have shown you a slide. He said, this is a public meeting, you've got to get to But it does. So this is green, Millennium Green, Miss Broughton. And then I want to say about these churches, the wealth of Suffolk means that we have some of the finest churches in the whole country on this route. Stunning, absolutely stunning. And each one was different and lovely and a haven to go into. And we visited and we spent time in each church. So this is Paper Mill, the Bramford Meadows. And then to Bramford. There is Shadow, just in case you want to spot it. Great Lakeland. And they're like the thread, so it's not a boring route, it's beautiful in terms of nature, but it's also really interesting in terms of history and architecture and just the sheer glory of it. The whole thing we felt was a celebration of life and Suffolk and spirituality, and it was just a wonderful day. Bayland Mill, there's only one piece of permissive path, which is not a problem getting permission. All the rest are rights of way, and that's just beyond Bayland Mill. So there is the permissive path sign as you come out from Bayland Mill. So you can see the terrain. A lot of it is what you call wetland. So in the summer it's easier to walk. Some parts by the river in the winter are a quagmire. So the pilgrim season is over the summer anyway. And that's where all the Marian feast days are. So that's when you can walk it on. Really stunning images of how it is. Creating Lock and Bridge, I'll say a little bit about John Rennie's work in a moment. And then on the path to Needham Market. Something very special happens when you're walking. You're not passing through the landscape, you're in it, and you're past it. And this is coming into Needham Market. And look at this, John the Baptist. This is nationally famous as a superb example of a double hammer beam angel ring. So that was the first section. The second section was shorter and Needham Market to Hawley. So again, the map. The car landscape, I didn't know what the car landscape was before we started doing this. And it has we kept going to Aldercar Farm for a coffee. And I thought, why is it called this? And apparently it refers to wetland with small clumps of trees in the wetland, and they're very often alder trees or birch trees. And when they decay, they seed new trees, but they add to the nutrients of the wetland environment. So this is a really rich ecology along the river, really rich. This is the car landscape we're walking through. There's a little bit here. When you go from Needham Market, you can go out to Creting St Peter, and we did that. And you can either go back another way. This feature path here is not quite so well defined. It's public right of way. Or you can go back the way you came, go around the river path here. That's where there's a boardwalk, and it's quite flooded. The boardwalk's being mended at the moment. So I've shown it going by the slightly less used path back towards the river path. So let's have a look at the environment. We walked this section in March, and you can see the difference. You can see birds around, the water. And this is actually on that section going out towards the feet of St Peter. And there's the church. And fabulous skies. It's just stunning, to be in this environment. That actually was not in March. That's when Maria and I went back to check that piece of footpath a little bit later on in the year. You can see the poppies on the ground. And then arriving at St Mary's in Stowmarket, there was also a Marian shrine in the churchyard. And we didn't, this is not our lunch, by the way, it's just an example of the food they serve at the Ozian Cafe. But it was lovely to go there to the Ozian Cafe. And then from Stowmarket, taking the path out to Dagworth, which is this beautiful rural route. Again, a little bit quite nourished on the foot places. And then coming into Hawley, up the main street to where the castle would be at the top, and St Mary's Hawley, which is a very large church for the size of village it would be. And some of these need a month the same, and you just conclude to accommodate pilgrims who are coming through as well. And the shrine of the Holy Cross is the south aisle. So you can see in the centre, this is the south aisle. Don't have the colour believes very strongly that that was a separate building before the church was built, and the church was grafted onto it. And this is common in lots of cases with these shrines. So actually incorporated into the church in some way. So this is what we'd like to rededicate to the chapel of the Holy Cross. Notice the window at the end. When you see the stone tracery, it's very, very unusual, and it's in the shape of the cross. So this was put in order to show off this. And the doorway is huge. It's a huge door. The tower is offset, and it's a huge door to accommodate, showing off to pilgrims. This is a place of significance you can come to. And then the last stage, we made it all into Bury St Edmunds. It's quite a long stage, and we walked this. Andy joined us for the second half of this route. And again, same format, so you can see the churches, but you've got them on your map in front of you in a different scheme. And this is very much open field landscape. Absolutely incredible, the lark song over these fields, just amazing really. And so we spent a lot of time trying to find a safe place to cross the A14. And we tried to go from Elmswell down the hill and over the main road bridge into Woolpit that way, and it's incredibly dangerous. And we managed to do it, but we were risking our lives and limbs and so on. There is no pavement and there's no path. We eventually found, thanks to Gerald who's here, the crossing just by the chicken factory at Hawley New Street. And this is a footpath, and it actually goes, this is the footpath going up over the A14, and this is the sign at the beginning of it, and it says footpath only. It's a private road to farms on the other side, and you can literally cross in complete safety. You go past some of the Hawley oaks, which are 400 or 500-year-old trees, and you come to Shelland, which is a lovely, lovely show. And from Shelland we had the interior. I love it. It's the box views, and apparently has one of only 20 working barrel organs that play hymns in the country. I think it has 30 something hymns on it, which is pretty cool, isn't it? We didn't hear that. And then the question of how to go from Shelland to Woolpit. This is all rights of way if you go along the road. And you can go directly through Woolpit Heath and along the road. It's not really that attractive. It's not dangerous, but you're quite close to the road on the verge. But it's all adopted rights of way. It eventually becomes a footpath here. So that's one route. But we did explore, we liked better, a route round past Shelland Hall, a loop to the south a little bit more, because it's beautiful rural countryside, the shadow having a rest. And it's just really lovely. But it does end with a B road, which is long and straight, and you can see who's coming. Far less traffic on it. You have to follow that into Woolpit. So I think that's a better route. We have offered all this to a lovely lady called Jane Spalding, who runs the Discover Suffolk app that walks in Suffolk, and she is very happy with the route we've devised, which is in pencil on the OS maps on the table at the back if you want to see the detail, because we need their approval to be able to then go and waymark the route. So it's safe, it's rights of way, or it's quieter country lanes, and it's perfectly okay. It's also dog friendly, except that in many fields you've got to keep a dog on a lead. There's only one field with cattle in, and that was a little bit more tricky because cattle are interested in dogs for some reason, but it was fine. So here we are again, beautiful routes, St Mary the Virgin and Woolpit, and there's the cafe we stopped at, just lovely, and the shrine was around the back of the church, we think, where the vestry was built next to the church. That was Our Lady of Woolpit. Not sure whether the Holy Well, which is also in the village, and here the photographs of it, as well as sort of disappointing modern-looking grid in the ground at the moment. But it is an ancient well, and we're not sure whether that's connected with Our Lady of Woolpit or not. It's sort of all part of the experience of being in Woolpit, which was lovely. And then we moved on, and this is where we came into really open country, and the lark song here was terrific. Woolpit to Drinkstone, and All Saints at Drinkstone, Drinkstone to Hesset. You can see how open it is, walking, just lovely. And Hesset with his fabulous, nationally important wall paintings. And just a great experience to be there. And then St Mary's Ruffham, in that link of churches in the shade. And this is the way. Imagine going to church walking. What an experience. And this is the church. St Mary's Ruffham. And then beautiful skies again. A few people interested in us. And then this is Rushbrook. We've come up this lane towards Rushbrook. And there we are. Beautiful. I even had a little thing. Can you see it says fresh eggs for sale? It's a permanent thing to hold. There were no eggs in it at the time. This is inside the church. And there's this curious Rushbrook village, which is for workers on the estate, Rushbrook estate. You can walk through that on your way towards Bury St Edmunds. Here's Andy, proof he's walked a bit of it though. And it was late in the day, I don't know why it was late in the day. I think we stopped too much, probably much, as we came into Bury St Edmunds. And we had this remarkable, I want to say genuinely spiritual experience coming into Bury St Edmunds. We just saw the cathedral like this as we were walking in. And we were pretty footsore, and it was 16 miles, so it was a fair leg in the day, isn't it? When we came into the cathedral, it was evensong in a short while, and the choir were rehearsing. And it was absolutely lovely. And it was Easter time when we did this. You can't really see it, but the giant cross was hanging in the middle. And we just thought, this is wonderful. So that's a quick sketch of my second thing, which is the way. And you can see more from the maps at the back and so forth. My third thing is, this is really a very interesting route. It's a really interesting route for other reasons than we've seen so far. So, yes, we've got medieval wall paintings. These are from Hesset, and they're in the British Museum. This is a pyx, and this is a burst. And they hold the unconsecrated and consecrated posts. There are 3 of these left from the medieval period in the country. That's all. And they come from Hesset. They were found in the chest, Paris Chester. I've mentioned the routes. These are St John the Baptist and St Mary's Woolpit. I mentioned Shelland and the Barrel Organ, but you may or may not know that John Milton, his tutor, was the director at St Peter's and St Mary's in Stowmarket, and he is reputed to have planted the mulberry tree which still exists in the rectory garden. Whether this is true, I don't know, because I believe there are lots of mulberry trees around one country, but we can claim that one. Going back to John Rennie, he was an engineer of national importance. He designed the Waterloo Bridge, he designed the old London Bridge, the one that's now in Arizona, although that was built after he died, and he designed a huge number of locks and bridges and waterworks all over the country. What was his first engineering project on a massive scale? It was the Gipping. And he built over a dozen locks along the Gipping to his design, and he built 20 bridges or so. This is the one at Creting, it's Grade 2 listed. He's buried at St Paul's, and he's a man of national significance. This is the Gipping Valley Trust group, who are, over time, these volunteers are restoring the locks and bridges. It's a huge project. This is a footbridge they put back in and they've rebuilt the abutments. They're actually dredging the original bricks out of the river to try and build it authentically. Apparently, a renewed pair of wooden lock gates costs over £100,000. And there are very few people who make wooden lock gates, so they have to be transported from somewhere in Sussex. So it's a huge project. Their eventual aim is to make the Gipping re-navigable for pleasure craft and canoeists and so forth from Ipswich up to Stowmarket, which would be stunning if it happened. We kind of said, could this be the only pilgrimage you could do with a canoe? But of course you can't actually do the second half of a canoe, so there we are. And also, as you come out of Ipswich, you pass Packard's Wharf and Dock. And Packard and Fison were chemists who invented basically industrial fertiliser, and they were exporting this from the dock on the Gipping. This is Navigational Wharf in Stowmarket. This is Hawks Mill in the 1880s. There are a huge number of really interesting mills along the route, which one can study, and there's another flat bottom barge, which was going up and down the Gipping. I owe this to Josephine, who's also here. She said, do you know that there are lots of famous scientists who lived along this way? Sir Charles Sherrington lived in Ipswich, Nobel Prize winner, coined the term synapses and started research on brain and spinal cord and so forth. Fison and Packard I've mentioned, both devout Christians, Fison a Wesleyan Methodist, and Packard an Anglican at St Mary the Tower. Humphrey Brook, at Great Blakenham, there's actually a form of clay called Blakenham clay, which is very pure. Sorry, Blakenham chalk. I'm talking about chalk rather than clay, sorry. Blakenham chalk is very pure. It's come to the surface through the clay, and he used that to preserve roses, a world-famous collection of roses. Joseph Priestley, biggest name here, discovered oxygen, although he didn't name it that, and he was Presbyterian minister at Needham Market, 1755 to 1758. Not too popular because he was too radical with his communication, but famous and very able. He invented a cordite, smokeless explosive, and the Prince's family used his methods, which they thought would stabilise it, but there was this huge John Cotton explosion in the Stowmarket, 28 people killed in 1871. The factory was rebuilt and passed into the hands of Alfred Nobel, who invented dynamite and created the Nobel Prize. So he owned the factory there. And a few more. Eve Balfour, near to us in Hawley, carried out the longest running ever experiment in organic farming to prove that it was actually more successful and sustainable than chemical fertiliser, a Hawley experiment. Francis Bacon, who laid the foundation of the scientific method, his family came from Princeton. Professor John Henslow has the distinction of being Charles Darwin's tutor in getting Darwin on the HMS Beagle. He managed to secure him a place there. He was a botanist at Cambridge University. He came from Rutland. And this one I love. Oh, this is not a scientist, this is an entrepreneur. He invented the cod bottle, which is the one with the glass bead in the neck, so you can keep fizzy water fizzy in the bottle. And it will only pour out in the marble mood. We can say, along this way, somewhere in Suffolk, we're responsible for the entire fizzy drinks industry in the world. I like this one. This is John Wiggin, who was a chemist. That's his shop in Ipswich. That's his stall at some market, and that's him. But this photograph was taken in 1848 on a negative of wax, about 2 foot by 3 foot, and the Laycock Photography Museum say that is one of the most important early photographs in the whole country. The definition is amazing. You can blow it up and see the detail. And then looking at artists, there's the famous Cotman, the great landscape painter George Cotman, the Valley of the Gipping. Other artists painting the Gipping. Dickens based some of his first novel on Ipswich and his experience in Ipswich, but he also lectured at the Athenaeum in Bury St Edmunds. Eric Arthur Blair, George Orwell, never lived in Ipswich or anywhere close, but he took the name Orwell, so I put it in there just cheating me. But what is really interesting is this back here. Geoffrey Chaucer, his family owned an inn in Ipswich, and he knew Ipswich really well. And had it not been for Thomas Becket, it is conceivable that he would have written the Ipswich Tales rather than the Edmunds Tales. Or even better, the Bury St Edmunds Tales. So that's fascinating, isn't it? Because he visited Ipswich a lot. We know he was there a lot. And then if you go along, here's the landscape I mentioned. I mentioned the car landscape. You can see the trees falling down on these little clumps of them. But over here, this is the lark. And the lark landscape, 85% of the world's chalk streams are in England. And 60%, about 85%, are in East Anglia, and Suffolk is one of those repositories. The lark is a significant river. The chalk streams are described as the rainforests of England, because the biodiversity they generate is incredible. But if they're not used correctly, or the water is polluted, that biodiversity disappears. And there's a nationally significant project at the moment to clean the lark and make it a flagship of a chalk stream, as it should be in this country. And if I go on, I mentioned the skyscapes as also being significant. Johnny took his photographs as we walked. Every single one is on the way, and he knows all the flowers, I don't know all the flowers are, but the diversity is terrific. It's amazing. And here we are. This is coming out of Ipswich, wildlife on the river. I love this sign. The river as a wildlife corridor. You probably can't read that thing. And it's talking about kingfishers and otters and cormorants and so forth. This is a lark, of which we had many. In Hawley we did a survey a few years ago, which is on the wall. 83 birds identified, separate species. There are 16 species here who are all on the red list of endangered species, and we've seen every single one of them on this way and in Hawley. So this is a rich landscape. So that's my third thing. My fourth thing is we want this to be a route for everyone to walk. So inescapably, there is a Christian basis and focus to this, and it's the way of the cross, and it's about belief and spirituality and an experience that we hope people will have. The British Pilgrimage Trust have a phrase, bring your own belief. And I think that's okay, because you want everyone to walk this. And we think this route could be walked by families for a day out, it could be walked by any denomination of Christianity, and any faith, anybody can walk this route. And one would hope that because of what it is, it affects a transformational journey of some kind. So a route for everyone. These are the crosses I mentioned, which give it the core of the Christian focus. So it's Bury St Edmunds, the ones at Hawley in the tracery, and there are 14 stations of the cross. And happily, there are 14 churches on this route. And these are modern depictions at St John the Baptist. These are beautiful wooden carvings at St Mary of the Elms. Crosses set in with nap flint at St Peter's Creting, where the building was consecrated. There's a more Celtic looking type of cross at Hesset, and this one I think was at Woodgate. So that's the core of it. But people go on pilgrimage for all sorts of reasons. And I think there's something that happens when you are walking with somebody side by side. You're not confrontational, you're together. And Johnny and I walked a lot together, and we didn't want to do this, we didn't set out to do it, but we had the most amazing conversation about our own spiritual journeys in life. And it was really enriching, and it just happened while we were walking. There's something about the pace of it. But people go for all these reasons on pilgrimage. If you look at the red ones, they kind of link together to give you the core, the bright red. So it's a transformational journey on foot to a place of meaning or to special places, undertaken with trust and purpose, and it's walking with diviners, seeking new insights about yourself, others, and the world. It's an inner journey reflected in your outer journey. And there's lots more one could say about all this and unpack this. Probably things I haven't put on there I should have done. But everyone should be able to walk a route like this. And here are some quotations about it. Walking is for the body, but pilgrimage is for the soul. I love this one as a historian. It's following in footsteps of those who've been before. And this is somebody saying it's a space. It's away from normal life. It's a holiday, it's a gap, it's out of your normal functioning. And he's really addressing this. It's saying it begins with intentional walking, comes a space that can hold grief, joy, transition, and belonging. And it really is a wonderful thing to do. So then, my last section, and I'm just worried whether he's fine. He's still interested here, so it's all good. My last section is about this is not enough. This is not enough. We've sort of researched it, we've walked it, and if we've come up with these signs, who is actually going to walk it? A handful of people. You are. There's one man in and so you have to make it come alive. It has to be a living project. It has to actually be something that engages people and organisations and becomes alive. The last slides are all about ways that that might happen. And these are ideas we have. So our intention is on this slide. This is going to happen. We want to open it, and Bishop Jones very kindly said she would do so at Easter 2027, rededicate the Chapel of the Holy Cross in Hawley and open the way officially at that point. So that's where we're aiming at. By then, we want to waymark the route with a QR code on each waymark sign so you can access a map on the map as well, on Discover Suffolk, and hopefully on, as I put at the bottom, on OS walking maps as well. They're a bit more rigorous than what it was on, but I think we'll be able to achieve that. We also want to create a fold-out paper map, physical paper passport to take with you if you want to use that, a simple spiritual guide to the way, and our own app, Marcus on our group, is designing an app which is an electronic passport, which will sort of go ping when you go into one of the churches, so that you know you visited it. So you've got to take your phone in to do that, which is brilliant. So that's it, we're hoping to do that. But what would be really good is to have groups walking this, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and they could be 15, 20, 25 people, and we need places to stay for them, and hospitality along the route. These organised groups, it would be lovely if they could end with a special service at the Cathedral when they come in. I mean, that experience we had could be replicated. I think pilgrim badges and other items which are, if you like, rewards or memorabilia, would be great to have in the Cathedral shop. And we also want, Leslie, who is a community transport person for the county, wants to create more small walks, so shorter circular walks along the way we hope to have in place. And we have one person in our group in Hawley who's really keen on creating nature walks, literally a map and a guide of what you can expect to see in terms of flora and fauna and so on. And it would be lovely to create some of those for the way. So we think that can be done. And we also would like to ask churches along the route, because there are many representatives here, could you possibly do these things? Could all the churches link by displaying the map of the way we create on somewhere in the church permanently, so that's there as a reference? Could we have a pilgrim passport stamped in every church? Could we provide a welcome? We went into one church and there was a sign saying, "Welcome walkers." My name is Walker, so I thought this is really kind. And there were bottles of water, and it was hot, and we were very grateful for that. So it was just thinking about that. Could each of the churches adopt a Station of the Cross? There are 40, I don't know, that's something to think about. I know there's a group at St John the Baptist who are creating an altar cloth to celebrate the way, and selling that. And some of them are here today. Could churches encourage their congregation and other local groups to walk it? Could we link eco-churches along the route? Because this is a very big ecology project in the making as well, possibly. And could each church, every 14th year, go and check the signs are still there? Because once you have a way, I said to Jane Spalding, so what happens next? She said, it's your route, so you have to keep it up. Which means you have to check that the signs are there, basically, and it's still walkable and clear and so on. But then, if you spread out this ambition, I'm going to take it a bit further. There are people from these groups here. Could scouts use this to gain a whole host of badges, in my view? Could they walk sections? Could they become guides to it, or volunteer to help clear Himalayan balsam, which is invasive along parts of the Giving Valley? Is there a chance for bronze expeditions? The Duke of Edinburgh Awards, and I'm very grateful to Duke of Edinburgh person to be here. Is it possible for youth and adult conservation work with the Giving Valley Trust, for example, to engage more people? They need more hands. It's obviously healthy to do this. We've heard about 30 minutes a day. I'm sorry, but 30 minutes a day is far too little. So don't be fooled. You know, you need to walk for an hour or an hour and a half every day, and then you're using your body as nature intended. I'm sorry, I'm just lecturing here. This will help do that. Obviously, is there an approach through architectural and historic organisations, and Suffolk Historic Churches Trust, for example? Is there a way of seeing these churches connected? Because you see them differently when you go from one to the other and work with them. Bury and beyond, Bury tourist guides, tourist offices, can they advertise the way? Can we integrate the Suffolk Walking Festival and other festivals? But then, if you go further, we need to tell our story. Archaeological archaeological research of the route as possible. I know Sinead wants to investigate the other shrines. Can we get historians along the route collaborating? There is probably a book in this which would anchor it into public consciousness in Suffolk, and people would buy that in large numbers because it's a celebration of Suffolk and the countryside and what it has, and so forth. Can we have a programme of lectures, sort of like this one, but advertising the ways of different routes? Could we have a profile on BBC Radio Suffolk, which I used to be on for 18 months doing historical items, or other presences like that? And then can we develop a short video or two, voices about the way? It's people saying, this is my experience and this is why I'm excited about this project and so forth. Could we develop archives and museum exhibitions on the history and archaeology of the way? Yes, we certainly could. I should be twisting Dan's arm about that as a curator of Voices Hall. And could we create a travelling exhibition about it? But then if you go beyond that, if you really want to call this reborn, you need to think about creating a new culture for this walk and not the medieval culture. So you need to think, what would it look like in our present age to be a meaningful experience beyond your own personal one? And I would just say here, I haven't put a lot about it in here, that we are facing, as a species, two very significant crises: the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. If you walk this way, you can enjoy the biodiversity that is there. In 30 years or 50 years, will it still be there? Will it be flooded? You know, we don't know. So in using this way as a vehicle in some form to educate and inform, but also to say, can you help us to protect or preserve, would be very meaningful indeed. But creative writing, my son and I walked the Pedlar's Way, and there were poems carved into stone at various points. And I can still recite to you, we came over the rise to see Home Next to the Sea at the Norfolk coast, and we saw the light on the water. And there's a verse there we read. We both stood in silence and just couldn't speak. It said, and I being here, have been a part of all this, caught like sun on water. We were looking at the sun on water. And it was a profound moment to be with my son at the end of this walk, thinking, what has this meant for us? And it's meant so much. And there's room to do that on this way, I think. And sculpture, artists in residence, individual reflections and testimony about, can you have an anthology altogether about that? Having fun. We've got some university folk here, and looking at cultural heritage then, but the culture and heritage we have now in this walk, and what it means. Schools developing a new culture, and I took for a laugh here the Ipswich tales, or some Edmund tales to be generated. Why not? You know, somebody can. And then a wider profile. Can we register this route with the British Pilgrimage Trust? Yes, of course we can. Can we seek place in national pilgrimage guides? Yes, we should, because it's not there. Can we develop the presence of the pilgrimage on the Cathedral website and advertise the way internationally? Yes, we can. We should be saying this is the Camino of England, and it's part of it. And can we link? So can we have people from France and Germany and Italy walking this way? They all walk the other way to Santiago. I met a lady in Colchester who said, I've done the way, I walked out of my front door in Colchester, and I've walked to Dover, and I did get a boat across the channel, and I've walked through France, and I've walked all the way to Spain. And she got the most fantastic record of it. But why aren't people doing it the other way around? You know, and can we capture individual voices? The way, in my view, is not just the route, but it's people experiencing the route, and it's the experiences on the route. So that's what I have to say. We're going to open, Andy's going to sort of share any questions from the floor. But before you go, in a minute, some of our team will give you a response card and hopefully a pen, or you can catch a pen. We would love to catch instantly your thoughts. How could you, or the organisation you're representing, engage with this? Are you excited about it, or is it a very bad idea, or is it just a sentence on the card? It would be great to have with your name and organisation there, so we can get a feeling for where you feel this should go. We can't do it on our own. Second thing, which is a little bit tricky, is, it's not tricky in my view, but it's all dressed up and safeguarding all the rest nowadays. We would love to have you speak to the camera and just give us a sense of this. I'm excited, I'm not excited, but I think this is great. Johnny's got a setup there, we can also do it on a mobile phone. Alison has a phone as well. But I have to read you this because if I don't, then we'll get into trouble. So I'll say this to all of you. You don't have to do the video bit at all if you don't want to, by the way. But before beginning a video, you need to obtain your informed consent. So I'm going to tell you these things. Participating in talking to the camera is completely voluntary. You can skip a question, you can stop the video at any time, you can withdraw from doing it at any time. The video and audio will be recorded and used for information panels in churches. It will, in Hawley, we're going to have a console in the church which shows little short videos of people talking about the way. So it will be in churches, be online, and will generally promote the way for the gospel pilgrimage route. Your responses will be kept safely on one private computer. They will be used publicly only with your explicit permission. So you will see what we're going to put out. We'll contact you again with your clip if you do this. You will see how it's used. If you want to withdraw your consent at any time, you can email me. You've all got my email because I invited you. But that's all the gobbledygook. It's just to protect you. But if you can, in English with the camera, I would be absolutely delighted. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was an incredible presentation. I hope you got every word of that. Yeah, super. Please, now is the time for questions and hopefully answers. The plan is for as many questions and as many answers. So if you can keep your question succinct and short and to the point, that would be wonderful. And we will try and keep our answers succinct, short and to the point. So Mark, Mike, myself, and if you want to ask Tracy anything as well, she's over there. So please, Mark, if you just want to stand, that'd be wonderful. So questions, please, on the subject. Okay, not the World Cup or anything like that. Questions on the subject, and if you want to say who you want to answer, if that is an issue, please do. Okay, first person. Yes.
We're hoping that people get some sort of religious experience out of this at some stage, possibly as they enter the churches. And I'm wondering, is it possible to get people, maybe incumbents of the churches, to think about how that's done, so that you leave the church more thoughtful than you entered in some way?
The incumbents are more excited, and
They are. So
some are in vacancy.
Yeah. So the working group that we have incumbents or representatives from each church. So that is the task. That is the challenge, not just for the vicars and rectors or whatever, but for everyone who puts their hand up and says, "Yeah, I'd like to be part of this." That when people walk into these churches, they walk out feeling just a little bit different. There's something that they've captured. And when we walk in the country, amongst the creation, which I think is God's big cathedral, then the same thing happens. So yes.
They say the only church we couldn't go in was St Peter's Creting, because it's in vacancy. And all the other churches are open, welcoming, and a lovely, distinctive environment.
Thank you. Second question.
Bring your own belief, which is wonderful, and but in Christian terms, we've spoken only about the Church of England churches. There is quite a strong non-conformist history in Suffolk. I should declare my interest and the Bishop's Pentecostal.
We did invite representatives of other denomination churches along the route. Quite a number weren't able to come. I mean, there were some Quaker meeting houses, and they couldn't provide somebody. We had a lovely exchange with them. And a lot of these other denominations want to be kept in the loop, as it were. So I think we're kind of onto that, and I'm a passionate supporter of what you're saying.
Likewise.
And friends from the Roman Catholic St Edmunds here, I think, if they're not here, they're on.
Yes, they're on
They're on Mike's radar, and the churches together in Bury St Edmunds and stood up at the back.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everybody. Congratulations on a brilliant initiative. I've known Andrew for many years and Mark, and if they're getting behind it, especially Joe, I think it's going to work. 2 points. One is I will happily promote this through Churches Together Bury St Edmunds. Take on board what you've said and invite you to come to our next meeting or our AGM in September to promote it as well. The second point is that I am also a qualified first aid instructor and work with the East Anglian Air Ambulance. When we're talking about being out in the wild, I would hope that we make sure that safety is priority. I'm an instructor for CPR and defibrillators. If any church wants any information to provide that facility anywhere along the route, please, I'm happy to get involved.
That's fantastic. If you could put that on the postcard, because we'll forget that on this. That would be lovely.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Have a question? Yes, at the back. Oh, yes.
A question about accessibility. So at the moment, based on the walks you've done, some areas are slightly more difficult than others.
Yes.
Are there going to be some wood chip going down? Is it going to be leveled?
We don't have the ability to make a defined path where there isn't one. The only thing we can try and do is clear overgrowth away. So sometimes nettles grow over the path a bit. That's happened over the piece from St Peter Creating, I was saying, so that's probably fine. I would say it's a walking route, it's not a cycle route, it's not accessible to wheelchairs, and it would be difficult for someone whose mobility is constrained to do other than small sections of it. Some sections are easily walkable, but some are a little bit more challenging. It's all flat, so it's not really challenging in walking terms in terms of gradients and so forth. I suppose one thing I didn't really point out is an idea would be to create a virtual pilgrimage, so people could experience it through a bit better version of what I've shown you as a film, and that would be another thought about it. A great thing is, if your mobility is restricted, you can park in lots of places along the route, at the churches and go into them. You can use the train to go and see these places, so it's actually quite good in terms of being along that valley.
And that's something we're definitely exploring at Needham Market, doing the walk in short sections. We do have a use of a minibus, but doing short sections and also looking at where the stations are and so on. So if you couldn't do the whole stretch, you could perhaps do a few of the sections.
Thank you. Question?
I'm really excited about this for all ages, and especially for young people. I work on the welcome doors of the Cathedral, and for the last couple of years I've been doing that job, there have been so many young people come through who have talked to me about pilgrimage and pilgrimages that their schools have done as well, and they're excited about it. You know what's just coming to my mind, and please don't take this the wrong way, but do you remember that Pokemon game where youngsters were going from place to place to find Pokemon?
Okay.
And it was an electronic game.
Yeah.
But actually, if we take the young people into account as much as everybody else, there could be huge potential for capturing at each church something.
I absolutely agree. I think the idea of creating another culture around the way, which is about the issues they face of loss of biodiversity and climate crisis,
Yes.
which we probably won't face if they will. I think that would be really rich. If you could put that on a postcard,
Yeah.
I
that
shall.
would be terrific.
I'm vlogging
Yeah.
another thing.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
we realise the expertise and the experience in this room is massive, and we know that we can't do it on our own. So that part of this is to say, can you help us in some way? That's brilliant.
Ipswich Scouts.
Sorry, my name is Jerry. I'm from Suffolk Scouts.
I didn't guess.
You don't know, not one of the guns. Anyway, thank you for inviting me to come along to this. And I've received a couple of emails from a few different people, so it's obvious that this organisation wants us to be involved. I've spoken with some of our young people. We start at 4 and go to 25 youth members. I've spoken to our district lead volunteers, so Suffolk is split into 8 scout districts, and they all were really positive about it. They would like to know what you would like from us, so that we can say, okay, well, we can support that bit, and that bit. Some of the questions I've had around funding, that kind of stuff. We've also spoken with some of our funders, National Grid, Science, well, that kind of stuff. And they're quite keen to help us get on board with this. And it would be not so much through this walk, but it may well be sections of the footpath that the group might want to adopt and then maintain it. And that would fit in with their...
I think the best answer is if we were able to have a meeting with you and discuss what would work between yourself, that would be wonderful.
So there's loads, like I said, I've spoken with guys. Did you say somebody from DRE was good as well?
Yes, he's right in.
Fantastic, thank you.
Just an amusing observation, a spin-off of Star Wars is called The Mandalorian, and their mantra is, "This is the way."
This is the way.
I love that.
Who's that little figure with big ears?
It's you, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. Are there any more questions? Yes.
I wondered if you'd given any thought if you might make the way markers. I was wondering if it might be a nice project like Suffolk Rural or somebody else, so you think about heritage crafts.
No, we haven't, and that's a great idea. I got a quote from Jane Stalling, who's the Green Access Officer I mentioned, who runs the Discover Suffolk and Walk Out. She said it's about £8 or £8.50 to have one plastic disc waymarker. Don't like plastic, but she said if you make them too fancy, people steal them. So if you've got a metal, embossed metal waymarker and it looks attractive, people take them away because they're only screwed on. So we've got to think what would it look like. We've got to think about design, which is just at the moment as a placeholder really for us. And that's a brilliant idea to try and get some, local craft engaged in doing it. So thank you. Can you put it on the next slide? Thank you.
Mike, just a thought on that. The markers along the route, there are men's sheds, and they are always looking for projects. That might be an option.
Yes.
I've been part of that, and I hope to set up a very men's shed. The other thing is that you talked about Easter next year. March the 26th is Good Friday. We're already planning the walk of witness for Bury St Edmunds. And if there's some links that you would like to establish, please come and talk.
We're waiting on a date from the Bishop meeting about Thank you.
Okay, just want a couple more minutes. Yes, thank you.
Not so much of a question, really, praise. My name's Keith Brown, I'm a colleague here and friend, Derek Bloom. We're co-founders in the All-Town Hall, 50-mile route through Suffolk, joining up with the Waltown. And I have to say, Mike, I wish you'd have been on our team.
There's only one of it, though, so.
You've covered everything we have, and more. I think both of us take a lot to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming. I think it's brilliant that you speak here.
Excellent. Thank you, Keith. Thank you. Maybe one last question? Yes.
You probably know this already, but the Church of England, and I quote here, this summer the Church of England offers a new reflection campaign centred around pilgrimage. So it's a very, very good time, and they're wanting registration to watch for pilgrimage cases. So it's a great opportunity.
We've got copies of this for our group, Pilgrim Places Holy Art, and it's very much on the top.
Okay, it's nearly 20 to 9, and we still need time to have refreshments and chat amongst each other and to do the little video things if you're willing. So we're going to close the questions now, but there's still an opportunity to chat with myself, Tracy, Mark or Mike, or anyone else who's on the working group.
I'm going to say it's vital that we have a postcard from each and every one of you. I would love to have that as you leave. Don't take it away with you. Just to get your ideas. Very kind.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming. It's fantastic to see you all. Thank you to everybody for the work that you put into making this evening happen, including Lisa, who's done all these lanyards. Brilliant job. Thank you so much. And do stay. Oh yeah, and can we have them back? So should we all take them off? Sorry, no, not yet. We don't know who you are, but please do leave them in the box before you go. So thank you so much for coming. Do enjoy the refreshments. We hope to see you soon. Thank you.